Call the meeting to order. Please rise and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Good evening. I don't know about you, but I really like looking out there and not seeing a lot of white like we were threatened with. So that was kind of a pleasant surprise. Not that it was a great day, but it's better than the 19 inches or whatever they said. So can I get we're going to start the good news report. Sorry, my bad.
It's all right, autopilot. So we have really good news tonight on a couple of fronts. The first one, Mr. Webben is going to bring to us because we had the inaugural esports tournament with some very good results that you are going to share. So I will turn it over to you.
Thank you. Yes, we had the first ever South Dakota esports tournament at SDSU this past weekend, and Sioux Falls took home championships in 2 of the 4 games. Our Sioux Falls Red team for Rocket League ranked 6th, and we beat out Aberdeen, then Flandreau, T, and the #1 ranked Dakota Valley in a nail-biting 7 games right up into the end. And then our League of Legends team, the Inters, were ranked #2 going into the tournament. We beat out T, Duel, and ending with Dakota Valley, who was again ranked #1. We beat them very quickly in the first of 2 of 3 games. The tournament was brand new for South Dakota. This is the first time I know I've been to a tournament. You can see here we had our main stage where the championships were played, and some of the other games, they were live streamed with commentators, so families at home could watch and listen to the color commentary, and those who don't know about esports could learn something. A summary would be that Rocket League is soccer with cars, and League of Legends is a team working together to get to a particular point, earn lots of points for their team, and then capture the castle at the end is kind of the main idea, but I'm still trying to learn that one. So a big thank you to our first coaches, Jonathan and Valerie there. You can see them holding our trophy for the first game. And really the important thing about esports is not that we won, which is a really great way to end our season, but really it's about those kids there that you can see have smiles on their faces, that have a reason to come to school every day, a reason to keep their grades up because they have to meet attendance requirements and GPA requirements to participate. And that this team, when I watched them at the start of the year, didn't communicate much with each other, didn't sit around and talk. But when I went to their practice this past week before the tournament, they were all talking about things not related to esports. And that's really the important thing, is that those kids were learning teamwork, collaboration, and problem solving through esports. So congratulations to our team.
Second, we have another set of good news, and so Dr. Nold is going to come up along with our SFEA president, Tim Eckert. And I want to just preface this by saying, we've had an emphasis on increasing our teacher compensation for a number of years. That's been a priority. It became a priority of our legislature this past session when they passed some legislation that would require us to make some changes, not this coming year, but the following year. And so our team, along with SFEA and board members, have considered what would that look like if we went ahead and just made those changes for this upcoming year, knowing that that's significant for our staff. And so we can do this through an MOU process. It doesn't require a board report or formal action by the board, but we think this is good news and we want to share this and just make you aware of the changes that are in store for the 24-25 school year. So with that, I will turn it over to Dr. Nold and Mr. Eckert.
Thank you. As Dr. Stableman stated, we recognized over the last few years that it's been harder to recruit new staff and also retain our current staff, right? And so one of the main processes that we went through is since we are not in the negotiation years, using a memorandum of understanding to change our contract to raise those starting teacher salaries, but not forgetting our veteran staff too. I like to use the word we stagnate, right, at a point. But this work that we've done together here to help move that and show value to those staff that have been here a long time, this does a great job for that right now. So it's really great. Also, with our extra duty, extra pay, that's our coaching, our director's positions that we have within the district, that has not really moved a whole lot over the past 20 years. And so over the last year, we've done a really collaborative effort to research and find out what other districts are doing in our region and our size school districts as well. And we've made big changes there as well, creating a step and lane for people. So that way, if they're showing that commitment to that activity, they're going to see a salary increase over time too. So, Dr. Knoll will have a lot more specifics with the numbers.
So I'll just go through some of the numbers just so you hear this and at least are aware of some of that. Many of you are, obviously, but when you look at the totality of it, I think it's been a great partnership in being able to set some of these things up and be able to put it into action for our teacher salaries and for that across our district as well. So just starting teacher pay to work off of that, and then we'll go into the veteran teachers. But starting teacher pay in FY21, we're at $38,000 for our teacher starting pay. That went up to $41,000 the next year, $46,000 the year after that, and then over $50,000. And next year will be somewhere at a minimum of $51,716, and it could even be up from there. If you look at the totality of that, it's an increase of 36% over that 4-year time period, which is a compliment to the board and the work that you have done and working with SFBA in the negotiation process. So that increase of over 36% for our new staff. And as I said, next year it'll be somewhere close to that 52,000, and it may even be up from there depending on where we go. We put some things in there so we can increase that even. But you look at that, and Mr. Eckert talked about the veteran staff and making sure that we're taking care of our veteran staff. One other piece that we did is added an additional 0.75, again, on top of the salary schedule. So whatever was in the negotiation process for our teachers, we added the 0.75 on top of that as well as an increase. And then we looked at our veteran even more specifically, and anybody that was on the lanes as you go across there, and many of you will know this, but in A7, A8, 9, and 10, we're allowing those to move to B7, B8, B9, and B10 respectively, as long as they have the 13 years in the district, 17 total years of teaching. So it's looking at that veteran group, and that'll be about a 2.5% increase on top of their increase. So it'll be well over 5% as we look at that at a total increase for that group there. Then we looked at the next group of veteran teachers, which would be on that. They would be moved from H7, H8, H9, H10, those lanes, and they're going to be moved to I7, I8, I9, and I10 respectively. And that's if they have 20 years of work in the district and 25 total years at least of teaching. And again, for that group, it would be an over 5% increase because we're going to add 2.5% on top of what was going to be given. So it's going to be somewhere around that 5.7%, I do believe, right in there. We also agreed upon being able to move the beginning teachers up steps if we'd need to across that salary schedule. So we're looking at possibly being able to move them up to step 2 or somewhere in there. We could go all the way up to step 4, and we'll look at that. Each step would be about a 1% increase. And if we move them to step 2, we'd have to just move theirs. If we moved them to step 3, we'd have to move those that are currently on step 2 along with that. And so it would be a little bit of a domino effect there, but it'd add about another 1% into that whole process there. So each one of these things is seen to be something that'll take care of our veteran staff, an improvement and increase of their salary, as well as kind of that mid-range, and then our brand new staff as well. Mr. Eckert talked a little bit about the extra duty, extra pay. We did bring a group together and work collaboratively on that. Part of that is to stay competitive across the board with people in our area, but then to stay ahead of most of the rest of the state for individuals that are directors or head coaches or assistant coaches, things of that nature. We worked together on that, and it'll end up adding about 15% total additional dollars into that extra duty, extra pay. A little over 13% of that will be continuous ongoing. Some of it's going to be a hold harmless. So there are a few positions that will be evaluated to a different, a little bit lower pay level, but those that are currently in the spots will stay there. Most everybody else increased, you know, to 1, 2, 5, or even up to 20-some%, depending on what the position was. And then we made sure that we had that on top. Plus, those that are head directors, head coaches, we did a step schedule. And so that added to that cost as well. Right now, we have more that be towards the veteran end, but that'll balance out over time. So that's where I say the one-time increase would be about 15%. Ongoing will probably be somewhere over 13% right in there. But really to value those that are putting in that extra time and extra effort within the district. And so all told, it'll be about an additional $2 million in additional dollars that'll be added into the salaries beyond what was negotiated to increase the pay for the teachers. About $775,000 will be part of that 0.75 increase. About $883,000 will go towards the lane changes that we talked about for our veteran staff, and about $300,000 will go into the extra duty, extra pay. So overall, it's really looking at how do we make sure that we're looking at all levels of the staff, and then the extra duty and extra pay to be able to increase that there. And then for all staff, we'll do that 0.75 on top of what was negotiated, except for the admin group. But we will do that for all the other classified staff to make sure that they have that increase as well. And so we really appreciate the partnership that we had in working through the process of that, the extra duty, extra pay, into the negotiation and the MOU with our salaries for our staff. And it really gave us some freedom to be able to help, to be able to hire people into the right positions. So long term, this will help us obviously with our talent pool and the number of applicants that we have. So we greatly appreciate that and thank the board for their work and their approval through this entire process as well. So that is the good news report, and the good news is obviously that we'll be able to pay people more.
Awesome. Thank you very much. I think it's so important because we do hear often from our veteran teachers about how they maybe feel overlooked at times. And so I really appreciate the creativity that the team came up with to say, how can we look at this in a different way? And how can we make sure that those people feel heard and recognized? And so I think that this is a really great opportunity for them to see a little bit more in their paychecks. Our coaches, our directors, they work really hard with our students after, mostly, but most of them after working a full day with our students. And so those jobs are getting harder and harder. So I do appreciate also the additional pay that they're getting, that compensation for the time that they're and effort that they're giving our students. So our veteran teachers are not just, they have a lot of experience. They're our mentors. They are leaders in their buildings. And so I think it's important that we recognize that and show our appreciation. So again, thank you to the team for thinking outside the box and jumping a year ahead. We could have waited till next year when it was required, but we, I think, have shown, as you stated, over the last 4 years that when we can make a change and we can make it happen, that's our goal, is to not wait till we have to, but do it when we can. So again, thank you. Anybody else have comments? No? All right. Thank you both very much.
Thank you.
All right. Can I get a motion and a second to approve the minutes of the meeting held on March 11th, 2024, please?
So moved.
Second. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. The minutes are approved. We do have one person wishing to address the board on a non-agenda item. So Chad, if you want to come up and state your name and address, please. And you have 5 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Chad Bishop, and I live at 7405 South Valencia Drive here in Sioux Falls. I'm going to go without a net tonight, so please bear with me. So I made previous statements regarding the district's hiring policies and diversity, equity, and inclusion. I'll remind you of one where I quoted Justice Thomas after the recent judgment by the Supreme Court, Students for Fair Admissions Incorporated versus University of North Carolina, where the race-based admissions to higher education were struck down as a component of affirmative action. Quoting Justice Thomas, "The solution to our nation's racial problems thus cannot come from policies grounded in affirmative action or some other conception of equity. Racialism simply cannot be undone by different or more racialism. Instead, the solution announced in the second founding is incorporated in our Constitution, that we are all equal and should be treated equally before the law without regard to our race. Only that promise can allow us to look past our differing skin colors and identities and see each other for what we truly are, individuals with unique thoughts, perspectives, and goals. but with equal dignity and equal rights under the law. This was written by an African-American man who grew up in Jim Crow South and rose to sit on the highest court in the land. So I had the opportunity to attend the district candidate forum for the upcoming school board election. And I asked my questions, one of which did get answered, and it was, what role does diversity, equity, and inclusion play in the district's hiring policy? And there were mixed answers. I have to navigate here, sorry. There were mixed answers. One candidate said that diversity of thought is more important. One candidate made sure we understood merit first. And then there was another answer. And I want to quote, just so I don't get it wrong. We don't need to hire any more people that look like me. Well, at least like me, 40 years younger, me, okay? We don't need to do that anymore. And this exemplifies the concern that I have. So I don't want to make assumptions, but this person looked to be Caucasian. This person looked to present as female. And then the comment about age seemed to believe that this person believed that someone 40 years younger shouldn't be hired by the district. It was stated explicitly. So I ask you, if this person was elected and they found their way onto the board and they were able to implement the policies which they outlined in that statement, how would the district implement those policies without running afoul of the law? Excuse me for a moment. But that's one concern, that you might incur liability, that you might put the district in legal jeopardy. There's another concern, and I'd like to ask this. What evidence do you have that is credible that implementing the policy that the district puts forth, that we want our teachers, the demographics of our teachers to match the demographics of our students? What evidence that is credible do you have that you can present to the public to actually reinforce this? Is it 2% improvement, 4% improvement? Is it 50? Is it 100? We should quantify that, because I asked the question, are there other policies that would be more effective? This one, it gets a lot of play nationally, especially after the debacles at University of Penn, MIT, and Harvard. And so diversity, equity, and inclusion, I ask again, what does it mean here? If this person was to represent the school district, or excuse me, the citizens and the taxpayers, the families and the students on the board, and we implemented this policy as stated, what would it mean? Are we going to embrace that policy? Or will we do something different? It seems that that idea is accepted as axiomatic by the district. It's without question. But we all know over the last 3 years, a lot of things should be questioned. So I asked the question, what evidence do you have that this policy is actually the right one for Sioux Falls? Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Madam President, can I just have a moment of clarification?
Yeah, sure.
I just want to make it clear to the public, there's no policy being considered that would be related to any hiring practices at this time, just for clarity.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
All right, moving on, we have nobody requesting to speak on an agenda item. Can I get a motion and a second for approval of the agenda, please?
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. The agenda is approved. We have no conflicts. Can I get a motion and a second for approval of the consent agenda, please?
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. And can I get a motion and a second for an approval of the supplemental consent agenda claims to Sanford Health, 10A, 1 and 2?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That is approved. And next we have the reports of the superintendent.
Yes, and our first one is fine arts curriculum adoption, a big process that brings us up to kind of current standards with any revisions that need to be made for what is taught in our classrooms for fine arts. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Webben.
Thank you. I get to see you twice in one evening. We are completing year number 2 of our curriculum study for K-12 fine arts. When our team began, we looked at what the vision of fine arts for the district is, and that's to provide all students with the experiences, skills, and confidence to enjoy and pursue all artistic endeavors over a lifetime of engagement in the arts. From there, the steering committee looked at what would be our mission, and it really focuses around these 4 terms: engage, enrich, empower, and explore, which are found throughout our work that we've done and in the work of the state standards as well. I'm joining the process midway. It was started with my predecessor, Dr. Boyd Perkins, and he began in the fall of 22 with creating our steering committee. And then after that, committees were formed for the various content areas and grade levels to look at the curriculum and the pacing guides. This fall, we continued a bit of that work, really refining, making sure our purpose was still on track. And we had some teachers piloting materials, making sure the materials were in line with our pacing guides, making sure they work with what we are currently doing or with our students, and making suggestion tweaks. This pace works, this doesn't. We can move faster, slower. We need to find a different material if something wasn't quite aligning with where we were intending to go. Now we're at the point that we have completed all of the pacing guides and the writing portion. We've met with our steering committee again, and the next steps will be for approval, purchase of materials, professional development, and then implementation in the fall. I'd like to point out that the steering committee, as we will look at our other committees, is made up of a wide variety of staff members from all over the district: 11 teachers, 12 special education teachers, counselor, librarian, administrators, parents, community members, and our 2 instructional coaches. That's just the steering committee. But when you think about how broad fine arts is, from kindergarten to our oldest learners in high school, and how many areas we have, that it needs to be a broad group. Our teams of 75 teachers, 2 instructional coaches, wrote 80 pacing guides for K-12 fine arts. You'll see the list of everything that they wrote. In the list, we've expanded our middle school offerings, really allowing students to focus a bit in shorter chunks of time on more specific topics. We also are expanding graphics to all of our high schools. All of our high school classes now have a 2nd level course for those students who want to pursue more, and then can even go beyond and look at AP in visual arts if they would like. I'd like to acknowledge Mike Bossman, who is here. He is our instructional coach for music. Kathy Dang, our visual arts instructional coach, is not here because she's teaching a course for elementary majors on art methods. So she's helping prepare our next art teachers. Since I came in midway, the groups are really moving ahead, and I thought, what are our goals? What are the primary themes that we've been working on really the last 2 years? And really these 4 main themes came to mind, these 4 goals of the group, really focusing on our new state standards, assessment practices in fine arts, consistency, and accessibility for teachers, so that teachers who have so many things often going on have access to the materials that they need and are able to work efficiently with their time as well, so they can focus on planning and working with kids. South Dakota adopted new fine arts standards in May of 22. There were some changes, some structural changes. I would say nothing major. Still revolving around 4 core artistic processes of creating, performing, presenting, producing. We categorize as 1, responding, and connecting. And this is how we organize our standards in fine arts, is around these 4 areas. And that's what we have built our curriculum on. Another area that we really looked to be consistent across the board is assessment. We have common assessments now for every course. So when a student is in kindergarten art, they have a rubric to know what their art project should look like. They have a different art project or art rubric when they are in painting 2. But we've said that this is what we want our students to be able to learn and do on particular projects and standards across the district. One thing that's been a lot of conversation and really moved forward on is you won't see things about they did their work on time or they did their work quietly. This is really assessing for their grade the work that they're doing, the skills they're developing in the arts. And we have those conversations about those other skills, which are important elsewhere, but not in the assessing of their art skills. On the screen, I have examples of elementary art on the left and then high school rubrics on the right. And here is an example of elementary orchestra, and they've really built theirs to be a continuum from that 4th, 5th, into 6th grade where we have that transition. And then you see a middle school vocal rubric as well. These will be used across the district. Teachers have come together to create these and we'll use them across the district. It's that consistency piece that we have access, no matter what building we're in, that we have the access to resources, materials, supplies, equipment, books, supplemental teaching aids. When the committees came together and they said, this book is really great for teaching a particular concept. I have it, I've used it for years, it's fantastic. Another member would say, well, I don't have that book, but let me look at it, let's review it. Yes, that is important, and we're gonna have it for everyone. With that, I'll also say that if we're talking about high schools and one building had it, we didn't buy 4 copies of it. We bought 3. We wanted to be respectful of our resources, and our fiscal responsibility was very important when we came to that. So we bought what we needed and made sure that everyone has what they need. We have so many teachers doing many preps that we call. An art teacher might be teaching 6 different classes in their day. A choir teacher might be teaching 3 choirs and then 4 ensembles. We wanted to make materials accessible for teachers so that they can quickly have access to the curriculum, the pacing guides, what they need to be working on in their classes. So an example here, I have a 4th grade at a glance. So you can see for this course, we've broken it down by the month of the year. And from there, once they can go to August, they can click, or they can go to September, click right there and see what is it that they're going to be doing in September. And from there, they can see all of their assessment resources, supplemental materials. It's all right there at their fingertips, all housed within Google Drive. And so those materials that we brought together in one place so teachers don't have to go hunting for them. That's a big thing when you have to sit down and start doing some planning. Our recommendation is that the board approve the K-12 Fine Arts curriculum adoption for the 24-25 school year, and I will stand by for any questions or comments.
Anybody have any comments, questions?
Just a comment of thanks. My daughter's in 4th grade and shoots in orchestra, and sports wasn't her thing, but the violin was. So I'm very thankful to have that program and to have her engaged in a different way to get her excited on Mondays and Fridays for orchestra.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that when you think about new hire teachers, to be able to come in and have the resources and have the guide, they can still use their creativity and they can still use their ideas that they might have, but there's a framework for them and a starting place, which can be really overwhelming. So I love that piece of it where they can just access it and say, here's kind of what I need to do and what is that going to look like in my class. So great work to your team. The 80 different guides is a ton of work to be used in every school and every grade. So I'm sure that will be much appreciated when it's rolled out this fall.
Thank you. I would add that especially for our secondary teachers, we've added another piece as not a curriculum, let's say, but a guide to what needs to be done throughout the year. Because a lot of times we know how to teach band, we know how to teach choir, but we don't know how to get kids into all-state choir, all-state band. What's the audition process? So we've written some of those pieces down so that new staff come in, they can feel confident. They can feel confident about going. They know where to go to find that information.
That's great. Awesome. All right.
always.
Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Well, we involve kids. They come to school. Years ago, the military did an assessment on what is an indicator of success in high school. And they came up with kids that participated in activities. And I think it's great that we have the opportunities we do for our kids. And I thank you.
All right. Can I get a motion and a second to approve the K-12 Fine Arts curriculum adoption for this coming fall?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That is approved. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Okay, 2 additional reports, both on calendar, but just for clarification, 11B is on revisions to this current year, and then 11C is looking out to the future to approve the 25-26 calendar. So just for clarification, we have 2 calendar items.
Thank you, Dr. Staben. So this evening I'll go through and I'll stop after the first one so that we will be able to open it up for any questions that you would have before we go into the second part of it. So the first report here would be changing the 23-24, and thank goodness today we dodged a day of snow and things of that nature. Ended up being an all right day, and we were able to get all the kids to their activities and things other than those outside ones that they may have to participate in, like baseball or tennis or things like that. So the first recommendation comes forward, and this is to present the recommended changes to the 23-24, our current school year calendar, for adoption. The report contains changes for the 23-24 school year to account for the 2 days that we had canceled classes due to inclement weather. If you remember back on that, those 2 days, which pretty much shut down most of the city, was January 8th and January 9th. And so those were the 2 days of cancellation back to back, and we did not have virtual or remote learning on those days, so they were counted as days of not being in attendance. These are the recommended changes that we'd bring forward to you. In accordance with the approved 23-24 school board adopted calendar and the negotiated agreements, the days missed are made up at the end of the school year. But the Sioux Falls School District leadership team has met and talked through this, and we'd recommend the following. That the students make up one of the 2 days. That would move the final student day from Wednesday, May 22nd to Thursday, May 23rd. And the staff will make up the 2 days as follows. So they'd have Thursday, May 23rd, which would be a student contact day. Friday would be the teacher work day, that'd be May 24th. And the additional staff day will be fulfilled prior to the first contracted day for the next school year by completing 8 hours of district-provided virtual training. And those are things that we'd want to get done anyway, so it does help us in that to be able to resolve those things. So that is what we are recommending. That would have staff in person prior to the Memorial Day weekend, and they would not be back in person after the Memorial Day weekend, but would have those 8 hours of virtual training. So this one very quickly, the summary. The students in the Sioux Falls School District would be advised to make up one of the 2 missed days for the 23-24 school year, and their final day would be on Thursday, May 23rd. The staff will have the teacher work day on May 24th, and will complete the final 1 day of contractual time by completing an 8-hour district-provided virtual training prior to the contractual day of the next school year. The administrative recommendation is to approve the recommended changes for the 23-24 school year calendar to account for the 2 days that were missed due to inclement weather as presented. I do have at the end there the calendar, but really it just moves everything back one and then has that virtual day of training for the teachers. I will stand by for any questions before we go into the 25-26 school year calendar.
Questions or comments from anybody? you may remember that we did that last year too with the virtual days, and I think that we found that very beneficial as an option to be able to kind of push training out to staff that needed to be done, and then they had the opportunity to do that on their own time versus being at school. So I think that worked out well, and it was nice. I think they probably appreciated that flexibility as well. So can I get a motion and a second to approve the recommended change to the current school calendar to account for the 2 missed school days for the inclement weather?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. That calendar is approved.
The next calendar we're going to is the 25-26 school year calendar. We always bring these at least a year in advance of what we would be required to per policy. And so this is for the 25-26 school year. And so this would be the proposal for a board adoption of the recommended district calendar by the calendar committee. This sits on our community engagement, and this is to present the school board with the adoption of the district calendar from the committee's recommendation for the 25-26 school year. So I'll go through a little bit of the information that we utilized again this year, and this has worked very well for us. But the guidance we adhere to and have moved forward with is the calendar committee really tries to maintain that very first week of starting with a 2-day week. The next week then would be going to a 4-day week, Monday through Thursday. And then that allows for the Labor Day weekend to be a 4-day weekend. And then we start, obviously, that next week to be a 4-day week. When we sent out a survey on that, our parents, our community members seemed to greatly appreciate that. That allowed us to be able to start prior to the Labor Day break there and to be able to get days in prior to that so that we could, on the other end of it, make sure that we were done prior to Memorial Day. And so we always try to work that in, that we would have the students and the staff done prior to Memorial Day. Another things that we looked at, we'd agreed upon a couple years ago to try to not have student attendance on Native American Day, on Martin Luther King Jr. Day. We also did that same thing, because for 1 year there, we did that with the students and had the staff come in for professional development, but after some requests, we'd try to correspond that with our staff as well so that they would not be in on those 2 days as well. We did a lot of really nice things on those days with our students and our staff, but we understand also that people wanted to be part of different celebrations and encourage that. So we respect that and have worked hard with the calendar committee to maintain no students or staff on those days. The compensatory day in March corresponds with the boys state tournament. We were asked a couple times, each of those years, but we rotate that, if you remember, each year. It goes either between the boys, and then the next year it'd be the girls state tournament, and then to the boys, back to the girls. So we try to rotate that back and forth each time, depending on which one's hosted East River. Sometimes both of them are hosted East River, but we stay in that rotation just to maintain equity in that. March 2nd will be the full day in service in the AM, and then the PM will be the elementary schools. We moved that from February to March at the recommendation of our elementary school principals and staff. Some other important dates that you would see on this calendar. August 21st would be the first student day. That's one of our earlier ones there. You see that date continues to move, and then it goes back, and then it jumps forward again on a rotation process. October 13th would be Native American Day. We'd have no school and no staff, especially with the teaching staff. December 23rd is an early dismissal. So when we talked through this was a very difficult calendar to try to get that started in the way that we do at the beginning of the year with a 2-day, 4-day, with a 4-day Labor Day weekend, and to end prior than Memorial Day. So that was a difficult one. Those of you that were on the calendar committee know that as we worked through it. There was a vote that was taken by the calendar committee to see, do we add days in right before Christmas there, or do we take out that day in March? And it was decided by the calendar committee to have those days, the 22nd and 23rd in December, but do some type of an early dismissal district-wide for the 23rd. January 9th is the end of the first semester. The 19th is Martin Luther King Jr. Day. The 20th will be that compensatory day again for the parent-teacher conferences. And then graduation, May 17th, that was another part that we were asked to look at by our community and by leadership and the school board. And so graduation is prior to the final day for the students. And that way it does not impact Memorial Day weekend. And the final day, at least planned on this for the students, would be May 20th. Teacher work day would be the day following that. Committee participation, we have 30 members that are on the committee, and that's been a great asset. We have a wide range of parents that represent the group from across the district in all levels. our teaching staff, and then each of our different area groups besides our community members. And so we appreciate the participation. It really helps us to be able to get a good feel from the community what we would like as our calendar. In summary, the calendar committee reviewed the information submitted to the committee by various groups represented on the committee and the previous survey feedback from our stakeholders. The calendar committee approved the proposed 25-26 school year calendar, and our recommendation is for you to consider and approve the 25-26 school year calendar based on the calendar committee's work and recommendation as detailed in the attachment. And I do have for you as well that information in the calendar format, and that'll go through and show the exact things that I'd indicated, where we would start with a 2-day, 4-day, 4-day, and then end before Memorial Day, and the 2 days that would hit there in December 22nd, 23rd, the 23rd being an early dismissal. I would stand by for any questions you would have on the 25-26 school year calendar.
And that December date is challenging
It
with
is.
the holiday being on a Thursday. So we would have school Monday and then part day Tuesday.
Part day, early dismissal on Tuesday.
And then the remainder of that week and then the entire next week.
That is correct.
Okay.
Yep. And we went through, and that's one thing that we presented. This calendar rolls around about every 5-6 years. And in previous times, we did not have the days off with Martin Luther King Jr. and Native American Day. And so it sometimes would make it easier because then we wouldn't have to try to be able to make sure we ended before Memorial Day. So we talked about that up front with the committee. We came up with a lot of different ideas and then tried to narrow that down. We came down to 2 possible solutions. Then we had the entire committee vote on that. And 28 out of the 30 responded in a vote, and we took the majority, which would be that 22nd and 23rd. Part of it, I think, the difference was originally we had full days, 22nd, 23rd, then we changed that to the 23rd being some type of an early dismissal. We'll have to get that figured out to make sure that we can try to figure that in with the lunches and busing, but we would have an early dismissal.
Perfect. All right, any other questions or clarifications? No? All right. Can I get a motion and a second to adopt the school calendar for the 25-26 school year?
So moved.
Second?
A motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. That is approved. I know I personally get a lot of questions about the calendar, so can you let us know when this will be updated on the website for people to see?
And a great question. We usually try to wait till the end of the school year, the current year. And so the one for the next school year is posted. So to try to reduce some of the confusion on there, we wait till we finish this school year. So we hit about the end of June with the fiscal year, and then we pull that one off and then bring the new one on. So we'll have always 2 showing at any given time.
Okay.
We try to minimize it to those 2 just so we don't confuse people and they start to pull a wrong date off.
Sure.
Yep.
If anybody does want to get a closer look at it, though, they can go to the agenda or the meeting for today
Absolutely.
on the website, and that would be listed as part of
That
that
would be posted
attachment.
there.
So,
Yep.
all right. Can I get a motion and a second to move into executive session, SDCL 1-25-2, Parent 2?
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. We are in executive session.